Okay, welcome to this training course in matte painting. Now, I'm not a matte painter, but I know the principles, so hopefully this training series will help you. This is a piece I've put together. So I've added loads and loads of elements to put this as a shot, which I'm going to use in a video that I'm doing, or a animation that I'm doing of a dragon kind of racing through here. So I wanted this as a kind of matte painting for it. These birds I'll probably take out or animate in some way, make them scatter when the dragon comes into shot. So this is what I've put together, and we're going to do something similar. So the first thing and the most important thing is make sure you've got access to lots of images and that they're yours, unless you're just going to show this privately and then you can use copyrighted. But obviously if you're not, then make sure that you're using all your own images. So I have a library in my pictures folder where I have lots of images, and these are all images that I've taken or that I've got or royalty free. So I can tap into these resources and use them in my matte paintings. So that's the first thing. Right, the next thing is set up our canvas, and the size of the matte painting I've got here is quite big. It's a 1920 by 1080, so it's a big old painting for HD, and 180 HD. So that's the size that we'll be working at, so 1920 by 1080. So let's start by opening your Photoshop. I'll just close this file down, and we'll go to File, New. We'll type 1920 by 1080. And this is our canvas, so we're ready to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to set up a folder structure. So on my desktop I've got a Dragon's World folder where I'll be storing my matte painting. Okay, so let's just save it in there. I'm going to label this Concept 1. I might work different stages as I work through it, but this is the first step. Right, okay, so we're going to go and do it roughly the same as that last picture that you saw. So I'm going to go into my image folder here, and I'm going to grab a nice seascape that I've got going on, and I'm simply going to use the move tool over here and drag it inside of this. Now I don't need this anymore. I'm going to close this down. I'm going to press Control minus to extend out. I'm just going to maximize this screen, and I'm going to go to Edit and then Free Transform, and basically put this where you want it to be. And I'd like to point out at this stage I'm leaving a little bit around the outside, and that is because I want a pan shot, so I want to work outside this area. So that's another thing. I'm going to make sure that I do a clip border for it. So I'm going to go to up here, Shift Control N for a new layer. I'm then going to fill that layer with any old colour. I'm going to come back to image size, or sorry, canvas size, and I'm going to extend this out a little bit more. So I'm going to take this to about 300 this way, so 1300 by 2000, might be a bit big, and I'm just going to extend upwards and outwards. That's probably a bit big, so I'm going to come in a bit. I don't want a massive pan. I'm just going to chop a little bit of the top off. Okay, so now I'm going to select around here. I'm going to press Control Shift I and I'm going to delete. I'm going to press Control Shift I to get my selection back, and I'm going to drop this in here. This will show me the size of my actual plate, and the outside will be overspill that I've got. So I'm going to now take this, I'm going to use the free transform tool, I'm going to just drag this out, and there we go. So the first thing is I've laid my background. I'm going to set a sort of colour mood for this, but I'm going to do it when I've put the other background in. So I'm going to go in and grab my landscapes folder again and look for a nice background to this. I want a kind of cloudy background. I have quite a lot of cloudy shots. This one's got quite a lot of mood in it as well, which I quite like. So I think I'm going to use that. At least I'll use that for the cloud. That's too nice. It's not bad. I might combine them. Right, I'm going to open that up because it's nice and it's got a lot of atmosphere, this one. And again, I'm going to drag this into here. Close this one down, maximize this. And I'm going to turn this layer off because I want to strike a horizon line. And come back in there, then it will show me where I can go up to on my horizon. That's not bad. Okay, that's good. Okay. Let's just get rid of this. I'm going to go into my selection tool again, make sure feather is on 0. I'm going to select across here. That's not too bad, and I'm going to just delete that out. And if I have to, I'll just move my border down a little bit. I'm going to paint out this little glider guy here. That's good. Very straight border there, very straight horizon line, which I don't mind. Okay, so I've got to really get these colours to kind of match up. So I like this top one, I like this top colour. I might change it a bit. So I'm going to go into Image, Adjust, and I'm going to go down to my Hue and Saturation. And I need to desaturate it quite a bit. I probably need to lighten it. Maybe change the tone slightly. That's a bit better, a bit more moody. I'm going to come into my cloud layer and I'm going to do the same with this. I want to move it towards the blue a bit more. And now I'm just going to check my levels. Appear to be a little bit off. That's quite nice. Okay, now they're quite heavy clouds, so I'm going to want them reflecting in the water a little bit. So I'm going to select this top layer. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to come up to Edit, and I'm going to go to Transform and Flip Vertically. Now I'm going to use the Lighten filter. Actually, maybe the Overlay. A bit too much soft light. Bring this down a bit. So it's quite nice. I've got a little bit of that going on. And then I'm just going to trim off what I don't need, which is that. I've got a little bit of stuff going on down there which probably will get covered up, but I'll just get rid of it using the clone brush. Okay, so that's good. It's just added a second level of kind of detail across it. but you might notice it doesn't really fade back nicely. So I'm going to add another layer on top of this, and I'm going to use my gradient tool yeah, that's not really working. Okay, so I'll just add a bit of fog in there. I think I'm going to delete that layer. Okay, I'll work that back in later. Right, so am I happy with this kind of mountain range here? No, not really. It's not really going to work with my painting, so I'm going to look for something else. That's quite nice. Gives it a nice depth. So I'm going to select part of this now, just you, and I'm going to drag this selection into here, and of course go through the free transform, Control T, to just put this, drop this into where it should be. Have a look at it. It's not too bad. I'm going to use the erasing tool here. Just start to make sure my opacity is up to 100. And start to just go around it. Try not to touch those nice clouds I've got going on there. And there we go. Okay, so now what I want to do is to adjust my hue and saturation again, just to try and get it a little bit more like what's going on. That's pretty close. Okay, so I'm happy with that background. I'm happy with the water layer. So I'm going to move this sky layer up. It's a good idea to actually start labeling these at this point. So I'm just going to label this BKG for background. Reflects for the reflection. Skyline. I'm going to take this top layer and I'm going to press Ctrl E to merge it down onto the skyline layer. And now I can do any cleanup work that needs to be done. So I can come in here, use the clone tool, take some of this and begin to merge the two in so they work a little bit better together. it's not too bad anyway, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so we've got a nice sky, we've got the nice background. Now, like I said, I want it kind of misty back here. So to do that, I could take some of this cloud, as it's the same, drag it into here. Oh, what's going on? Use the move tool to drag it into here. I'm going to bring it up here. And I'm going to create a mask for it. So I'm going to go to Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All. Now I'm going to select all here, Control A, press Control, copy it, Control C, come back into here, press Alt, and paste it into. Now I want to go to Image and Adjustment and Threshold. Now I press Alt back in here, and it should have taken most of that out. I'm just going to fill this top area. So let me just select this and fill this in. That's a bit better. This is just showing you another way of using the mask and making it work for you. I'm going to go to filter and I'm just going to Gaussian filter this. Now it'll give me this kind of misty look. So all I'm going to do now is grab the edit and blow this up somewhat. Start to put these in here. I'm going to use the black now for my masking. So if I use black, if I was clicked on this layer and I use black, I would just paint the colouring. I've got 53 opacity, that's why it's not showing as black. Oh, and I've got it on brown. So that's what would happen, it would paint that layer. But I want to take away a bit of this or feather this off a bit. So I need to click on here, and now if I've got black selected in my paintbrush, I will be able to wipe this away from some of the mask and thus get rid of that sharp edge that we've got going on. So I'm running down there. There's loads of ways of doing these kind of cloud effects. This is just one. I'll show you some more later using brushes. So that's that. So now I can just start to duplicate these layers and offset them a little bit. Let's zoom out. So you see what's happening, we're kind of building up a misty layer in front of it. Right, so that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to create a new layer. Go on to the layer with the skyline, use the clone tool, with a softest brush, select a sample of the cloud, come back onto the layer that you just created and start to draw it in roughly where that line is. If you need to go back onto Skyline and reselect some cloud, do that. I'm doing that for this area. That's good. Okay, now I can just use the fill and bring the opacity of that down, and of course delete any bits out that you don't want. Then I might want to use a filter and use a blur. Just use a Gaussian blur like this, and that creates another kind of misted area. Probably come in here and just tone this down a bit. It's nice to leave parts of the image sharp, but it just needs something to break the straightness away. Although, like I said, we will be putting things in front of it. Or you can use multiply and darken that area down, which can also look quite effective. And in fact, I'm gonna, because I've got the skyline here, I'm gonna do a duplicate layer and just bounce that into the water. So I'm gonna do a duplicate layer on the skyline. I'm gonna go to edit, transform, and flip vertically. Now I'm gonna tie that up with that. I'm gonna take this and I'm going to drop the fill just a little bit, increase this brush size, and just wipe out most of it. Now the problem is that's reflecting too low, so I need to go to free transform and just push it just a little bit more. That's better. So we got the clouds, and now we got a bit of reflection, and it's looking a lot better, especially with that multiply layer over the top. So that's kind of our background done. Just labeling that. So that's our skyline and our reflected surface. So I'm going to group these in a layer now. So I've selected them, and I've gone down here and I've gone new group for layers and calling this background, and now it's put them in there. So that's all, and my little crop, that's cropping nicely. So right now we want to kind of add a big sort of rock in here. I'm just going to adjust this layer again. Just think it's just a bit blue, so I'm going to go to adjustments and hue and saturation. Just going to bring that down a bit. Our light source is pretty coming from here, to look where your light source is coming from in order to put the rest of the bits in. So right, I'm going to flick up my landscape again, and what I'm looking for is, I've got a nice rock formation that I use for that other concept. That's quite nice. That's the one I'm thinking about, that one there. These were taken on the same day, so I know the lighting was pretty consistent. Right, I think I'll drag this one in. Here we go. So I'm going to select the whole thing and just drag it straight into my piece. Okay, so that's in there. So I could manually go around it, cut it all out, but I'm not. I'm going to select tolerance on 32. I'm going to set select, and I'm going to press similar, and then I'm going to delete that out. Then I'm going to press select that with the magic wand, and again press similar and delete it out. And now I'm just left with some garbage around here, so I'm just going to manually with the brush just select around. And delete that out. Now we've got to integrate this as part of the scene, so let's have a look at it. First of all, our colours are a bit off. I'll just get rid of that as well. Yeah, our colours are a bit off with it, so the first thing I'm going to do is do a colour correction. I'm going to go to adjustments, hue and saturation again, my old favourites, and just bring that down a bit. Then I'm going to adjust the levels. I'm just going to check these. Okay, and finally I'm just going to check the brightness and the contrast. Okay, that'll do for now. It definitely is too bright on these sides, so I'll be dulling those down. But it's fine. So now to drop this into the piece, the first thing I'm going to do is do a duplicate of this layer. Just hold that for the time being. I want to select the smudge tool here, bring it up in size a bit, and just start to bring it down. Then I use the eraser just to erase that bit back out again. And now I grab this one and I flip it. Actually, yes, I do. So I go flip vertical. This is pretty much the same as what we did before, where we're just going to create the kind of reflection. And I come to my fill and I bring it right down. At this time I'm going to get the eraser, I'm going to bring the size right down and make sure my opacity's down a little bit. I'm just going to sort of cut into it, going with the kind of direction of the water. And it's not exactly still, so I might want to just use the smudge tool just to make it not so sharp. Obviously where it the closer it gets to the rock, the sharper it's going to be. So that's pretty good, and now I'm going to merge that down, so I'm going to Control E to merge that. And we've got a bit of cleanup to do. I'm just going to select that, I'm going to go to Layer, down to Matting and remove White Matte. In fact, that's caused a problem. I'm going to go back up on the history so that I'm not merging my layer, and I'm going to do my matting at this stage. In fact, I'll leave them unflattened. Okay, so you might need to go around this now. You could try using this and then using the old Simler, but you might need to put your tolerance setting down to about 2 or something, just because it will pick up. That's a lazy approach, really. You should really go through it all, so you're taking out any bits. Run round your model, do model cleanup. Model cleanup, it's a painting cleanup. And so I'm just running around this. I'm going to turn this higher, otherwise I'll be all day. So spend a bit of time going around it all, making sure it's all tight and tidy. And I'll see you in the next lesson, where we'll carry on adding more elements, adding a bit of mood and stuff into the shot. Okay, I've gone ahead and finished this matte painting. So this is what we're going to be working towards now. Don't worry, I'm going to cover all of these techniques. I just wanted to show you what the finished production would look like, finished painting would look like. So as you can see, I've got my crop there, and that's it uncropped, so it gives me a bit of movement to be able to move this scene around a bit and animate certain features, like maybe the waterfalls and these foreground elements. But I want to show you this end resulting file and all the bits I've done, and recap on some of the techniques that we've used if I went a bit too quick. So here we go. I've put a colour tint over it to globally change and sort of bring it all together, and as you can see, all of my components are all in their own separate folders or groups, and so it's nice and easy for me to find particular groups that are causing problems or that I don't like. And all of this is using techniques that we've already covered and coming up with this final output. Now there's one big thing that I did do, and that was the background. The light is coming in from this kind of left hand direction, and my sky scene had the light coming in from the right, or that's how it looked. So I basically just horizontally flipped the background and the reflected layer that we created as well, and that seemed to work, so I didn't have to change anything too dramatically. So as you can see, I've flipped it around and just flipped that. Okay, so this is what we're working towards, and now I want to show you some of the features or some of the techniques that we've already used, just to make things crystal clear for these techniques. What I would say is that the brushes that you use, play around with. I'm not going to go into detail on all these different brushes that you can use, but play around with these and you can get some good effects. All these sort of default brushes that are in here. Ones that I use a lot are these sort of top section ones, these ones here, and sometimes I'll create my own, or I might use a couple of these. Just play around and see which ones work for you. That's brushes. Keyboard shortcuts. So if I go to one of my soft brushes, this is a 45 pixel brush. You can see it on the screen. If you look down at your keyboard, next to the P on the keyboard there's two brackets. If you tap the right hand one, you're going to get your brush size increase, and if you tap the left one, it'll decrease. So the bracket keys work those. Up the top here, which I use a lot, is the opacity slider, and I'll continually be flicking the opacity down. And there's a great way to do that. Keys 1 on the keyboard right the way to 0 will change the opacity. So I can go to 60, I can go to 40, I can tap it again and it'll go up. So that's a really quick way to get your opacity working. I can do 77 there by clicking 77, or 45, 34, 0 takes it back up to 100. So that's something that you use all the time. You've also got the E on the keyboard will activate the eraser. So these are shortcuts that you'll be using all the time, so I would learn these. B will flick it back onto the paintbrush. There's shortcuts for all these little, so just play around with the different shortcuts or the tools that you're using. So that's that. Right, okay, now I want to have a look at what we talked about, which was, I'm going to quickly cover how to set up layer groups, and also about the masking technique we used. We're also going to dip in, we've already looked at the hue saturation, I mean that's pretty obvious, and the levels, we've looked at those. We'll briefly cover those again, but I'm going to open an image now. And sort of show you all of it in practice. I want to find something that's that'll probably do. Okay, so we got this one here. Now, using the layer masking is a very non-destructive way of being able to mask out certain parts, because by using the layer mask you can always pull that detail back. Remember, layer mask, if we're painting out detail we're going to use black. If we want to put that detail back in again we're using white, because it works from a grayscale to work out the masking. So the first thing I need to do on this flat layer is I need to make this a non-background layer, so I'll double click in there sorry, and make that a mask so that I can pull detail out. So as we already saw, we can use the magic wand, turn up the tolerance settings to try to get as much of the masking as possible, and then we could hit the backspace. which kills off all of this. I'm going to drop another layer, so I'm going up over here, and I'm going to go new layer, and I'm just going to drop a black layer in, and I'm just going to drag this layer below it. You can see here there's white around these edges. You can use, once my layer's got the alpha, which is this cut out bit, you can use layer and matting and remove white matte, and it will pull it in. And you can do that a few times to just pull that in to get rid of that fringe. It's a handy little tip. If it's black, you want to use the black matte, or you can go in and just globally defringe it, and it'll ask you how much. You can go in there and put 6 or something, and it will just take 6 pixels off all the way around. So that's a handy little tip to speed up your workflow. Right, so even though I've cut this out, I can still use my layer masking. All I need to do is go into the layer, go to layer mask and reveal all, and you'll see this will appear over here. If you press the Alt and then you click in here, you'll get this come up. I have my cap locks on. Be careful you haven't got your cap locks on, so it will cause problems. Now if I now just did black in here like this, and then I hit the Alt key and I click there, you'll see it's cut that out. But if I click here, I can draw black on here. But if I click this one, you see that it changes. I can then select the white, switching my colours there, paint that detail back in, and you'll see that on the mask it's updated there. So it's a non-destructive way of being able to mask out using black now. And I'm not painting black on this model, it's just bringing the background through. It's alphaing it out. If I click that, you can see, and you'll see the black's appeared in there. I can click into there and clean up and finish up there, then go back in. So that's layer masking, and like I said, it's non-destructive, so I can bring detail back. Oh, make sure I'm in the right layer. If I'm inside this layer, I can paint white on here, and that's paint, it's not part of the mask. So I want to undo that, and I want to make sure that I'm in that layer, and then using the white I can bring this detail back. So that's really handy to use. A lot of people just use that. I use a combination of both. If I think I'm going to need to bring some of the detail back, then I use this masking method. If not, I'll probably snip out and clean up my components as I go along. But whatever works for you. So once you've got your mask all nicely sorted and you're not going to use it anymore, you can apply it. So if you right hand click on the layer and just apply layer mask, it will then apply it, and you've no longer got a layer mask. A layer mask does stop you from doing certain things and using certain tools, so bear that in mind. So if you're going to have to, so you might want to make a copy of it and then apply the layer mask to one and keep that copy just in case you've got to go back to it. So it's just being prepared for all eventualities. Right, as we've already looked at, if we go into image and then adjustments, we can go into levels and we can play around with the highs and lows of the overall image, which gives us quite a lot of control. But say for instance we just wanted to maybe knock up the green or something like that, you can go into image and adjustments, and yeah, we could use hue and saturation, but that's going to change the overall image. So what we would use is curves, and it looks scary, but it's not. It works on the RGB channels, so you've got red, green and blue. You can pick which channel you want, or you can work on them all. Now if I wanted to know on this graph where the green was, this particular green, I could click here and it would map it and it would tell me that that green is at that point. So I could lock certain parts and then be able to change just those areas without massively affecting the underlying. So I've just as you can see, my green's getting really affected. So this is really good for, or you can go into individual channels. Let's go into the green here. But this will affect all of it. Again, you can use this to find out where your green is along here. I can pull this up, then I can pull this down, pull this onto a straighter curve, and see you're not really affecting other colours, but you're just affecting the green and modifying this green colour. So it gives you lots and lots of control. Play around with that. That's vital that you learn you understand the principles of this. And as you see, if you go into RGB and you've changed one of the channels there, it will actually show that channel here. So that's the curves box, which is used quite a lot, especially when you want to tweak certain parts and not tweak others. Of course, we've already covered the hue and saturation, which is quick fixes to things, really saturate things up. But also what I didn't show you was that you can do certain areas. So say I masked off this area, I could then go in and just adjust that area like that. So you don't have to affect the whole image, you can just affect certain parts of it. And here you've got the history brush, so it will take this back to what it was before, which again is another good thing. You might have overspilt on your masking and you might just want to use this to just come in here. So that's it. So that's really the main tools that I use for these type of matte paintings. And generally what we're doing is we're doing the concepting as a matte painting, but what you'll receive is a concept, which in some ways makes it a little bit easier because you're following a guide rather than just making it up as you go along. So that's some of the tools. Hopefully that's been of help to you, and now we'll continue with our concept, our matte painting stroke concept. Okay, see you in the next lesson. Okay, welcome back. Right, so we've done our cleanup of our model and we've talked a little bit about the methods being used. So let's carry on with our matte painting, and the first thing I want to do is I want to add a different sort of level to the top here. Before I do that, I'm just going to make a duplicate copy of this, which I'm going to free transform, Control T. I'm holding the shift while I'm dragging this out, and I'm just going to put him kind of in the background. He'll be about that far out, just something like that. I'll just delete this access there. Now I'm going to start labelling these. It's really important that you start labelling them. So this is the front rock reflection. So name them something so that you know what they are. Like this, and this is my front rock. We're going to build up a lot of layers, so it's really important that you label everything. This will be our back rock. Of course we need to add reflections to that as well. So actually I'll do that now. I'll just duplicate the layer and do my usual flip vertical, bring this down about here, take the tint down, come into the eraser, select a soft brush for this. I'm using soft brush with the opacity down to about 55, and I'm just going to run across it like that. Then I'm going to use the smudge tool, and I'm going to start to smudge this shadow up a little bit. And then finally I'm just going to use the eraser just to take out a lot of this. I don't want the reflection going too far up. I might even take it down a little bit more because it's a bit further away. Okay, so that's those two. I can turn those off now, don't need those. So we need a sort of grounding for the top here. I think this rock placement is a little bit off. I want to kind of move it up maybe a little bit more. That's probably fine. And in fact I think I'm going to use the eraser here just to take a little bit more of this away a bit. And of course you can come along here and just use the smudge tool just to smudge it out a little bit. As it wouldn't be directly down, there's water here, so it would there's little ripples, so it would kind of get broken up. So that's quite nice. Okay, right, so now I'm going to just go to my references again, and I'm going to drag, so you always have this open on, and I always have it set up on a dual monitor. It's essential that you're using a graphics tablet. You can't really do any sort of matte painting with just the mouse. It just doesn't work. And the trees I want are going to be kind of windswept trees. These were a nice texture. I've got the image somewhere when I can find it, but it's a nice texture. It was taken in New Zealand, and they've got these massive plains of green where the wind sweeps across and causes these trees to go in really funny shapes. Okay, here it is. Right, see these trees, they're really, it's quite nice. Before I go in, I've got my tolerance set at 32. I'm just going to scrub out most of the blue, and I'm just going to drag this straight into here. It's going to be huge. I'm going to make a duplicate. Just close that one down. I'm going to make a duplicate of this, and just now I'm scaling this to get it approximately the right size and ratio for that rock in the background. So it needs to come down. It's quite far away. That's not bad. Okay, so I put it here. Now you can use the clone tool. I can start cloning this. So I press the Alt key to sample. I'll sample here. Then I can go on to my rock layer or another layer. In fact, I'm going to create another layer above it. New layer, and top rock detail. And now I can, because I've sampled there, remember I went to there, clicked Alt, and I went into my new layer. I'm going to say where the start is going to be, which is about there, and then I can sample. And so very carefully I'm putting that on the top, and I'm going to come down here. Now if I can't sample here, I've got to go back on the other layer, because it won't take a sample from that. Now I can go back onto here and start to put these trees. So I'm going over the top of the trees that are kind of there with these new ones. I'm out of the sample area there, so I need to come back in. Let's take let's go down here. And I can put something around this side. That's sort of meeting up there. There's that little bit sticking out there, so I'm just going to sample maybe this. No, I don't like that. I think I'll just remove this little bit sticking out. Need to make sure I'm on the rock layer to be able to do that, like that. So there we go, we've created a new top for that. And what we need to do now, that's our top detail, is select the brush, come down in size. For this I'm going to use, I could just use a soft brush for this, but I think I'll pick 39. It's a bit more kind of rock. Pressing the Alt key over an area will select that colour. So if you look down here, as I click, it will select that colour. And what I want to do is just come along here, and I'm going to drop the opacity down, so I've got a little bit of the background still showing through, and I'm just going to drop this in here. Take a little bit of that out. Maybe jump into the clone brush, clone a little bit of this over here, just into that rock. Jump back to this, clean up. So a little bit of a clean up round here. I jump back into my brush, maybe sample a little bit of the rock, begin to bring him in. So now kind of making a ridge for this to sit on. And what you're trying to do is just got to integrate it a bit better so that it looks like there's sort of part of the rock there that's that will take that. So that's not bad. Could do with a bit more tidying up. I think round this area, come in and just darken that down a bit. But if I move out, that's quite effective. These need cleaning up, so use some little trees to add those. So you get the idea. You just go in there and sample a bit of this, come back down to the rock detailing and begin to put it in. Do make sure that you're using the right tools, because I'm not. Just sort of fold them over the top. I think I have some of these little trees coming out the other side as well, so I'll sample from here and I might bring these around. Looks like it could work. You got a kind of ridge running down that side. Just going to grab a bit of this, just start to fill it in. I'm using the darker colour with it set to an opacity of about 40, just because some of this light wouldn't be affecting this side, because it is round the far side of it. So I want to just dull that down a little bit. Now I'm just going to come in here and start to tidy up. And you just kind of build on it. So we're trying to add little bits in here of light colour just to pick it out because it was looking a bit dull. So that's how that's done. So we changed that significantly from what it was before, and it all kinds of works. We haven't done any blending in yet, but we'll get to that. Now I'm just going to leave my thing up there. This layer, I'm looking at the back rock now. Let me just move this down. This back rock's really small, so I'm going to take my little sample that I've got here and I'm going to free transform this down so I can work with it there. And in this instant, rather than sample and jump back, I'm just going to merge this layer onto the back rock layer. So I can turn this one off, I can turn the reflection off, and all I'm going to do is Control E to sample it down. Now it's on one layer, it means I can sample directly from it. So I'm going to go into the clone again and I can start to add my features, but also I'm going to start cloning and changing the whole shape of this rock. I've selected a point in there and I'm going to start to bash around and create a brand new rock structure. Probably need to do another reflection. So I'm grabbing parts and just duplicating out to change the shape. That's quite nice. So that shape's been well and truly changed. And you just got to make sure, just go over some of the areas because you want to make sure that you haven't got, it's not looked like it's been cloned. This area and this area are identical, so I'm going to come in and just start to change it around a bit. And of course it was based off the front rock, so you want to make sure it's a bit different. Okay, so when you've done that, I just want you to come in again and just start to clone a few of your trees across the top. Maybe for this one I'll put a nice bit of green around here. put on here a nice bit of foliage going around. And now I'm going to dip into my brush, just sample a bit of this off and just start to darken it around some of these areas. So remember, I've got 40 opacity here, and I'm just sort of dunking it down and trying to blend it in. Then I'm coming back to the clone and putting certain bits of clone over the top. And there we have it. So I'm going to sample this one as well actually and put him back here. So he's kind of coming around. You've got this wall here, and then you've got this bit of green that's flowing over the top. So if there was a wall there, that would probably be a bit darker, which is nice, and there'd probably be a little bit of a shadow over there. So I'll just hint that shadow. Just drop a bit more of the bigger shadow in there. That's nice. Okay, that's good. So I'm just going to zoom out now, have a look at it, and have a look how it matches up with the rest of my map. I was going to put a shadow in for that, but I think I can maybe get away with it if I just use the blur tool. Actually no, it's only going to take me 2 seconds, so what's the worry? So okay, so I've got this layer. Now what I need to do is just to come in here and delete the area that I don't want. So I'm using the lasso to do that. Now I'm going to do my duplication and my flipping and my deflection. So there he is again. Drop him right down. Come in with the eraser. Probably when I'm on about 50%. That's good. Get this tool here. That's nice. Okay. I'm just going to use the smudge tool now, just to, on the rock layer, just to bring this down a bit. I want to sort of try and sink it into the picture a bit better. I'm also going to now flick to a white colour. I'm going to use a soft brush with a low opacity of about 17, as we've got here, and I'm just going to start to just put in a few white, maybe that's a bit low. Just a few little white lines going around it. That's a bit better. So I'm just kind of trying to refine a few of these features in here. That should be alright, it's well back, but I've settled it down a bit better. So this is how we do it. We just go along adding more and more bits and pieces, and just concentrate, add another rock here, like this one that I did. Have a look at the finished one, you can see what you've got to kind of achieve. Don't worry about the waterfalls or the colour balance or anything, just put all your rocks in location in the background, the midground area. Just put everything in, make sure everything nicely matches up. If there's light on the wrong side, make sure that you flip it or that you tone it back and then lighten the other side. Just concentrate on all of those until you get something like this, without this foreground, none of this foreground, but all these background elements. Don't worry about the waterfalls or the mist in front or the colour tinting. Just as I said, get it so that you've got another big rock here and maybe one at the side, however you're designing your map. And then the next thing we'll look at is putting the foreground element in, and then we'll look at colour adjusting everything and final tweaking. Then we'll sort of add the mist and the light rays into it. And as I said before, just before I go, this light is hitting the wrong side. The light's coming from here, this is a big light source, it needs to be over on the left. So I'm going to go into my background colour now, and I'm going to take my Skyline copy and I'm just going to flip it on the horizon. So transform, and there we go. So that looks a lot better, it looks like the light's hitting it at the right angle. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson where you should have created all of these elements, not colour adjusted, just added in bits and pieces. And then we'll look at the adding some buildings into these, and we'll look at adding the waterfall, and then we'll tackle the foreground element. Okay, welcome back. So you've probably put your blocks in there. You can see that I've put the foreground in as well. I haven't done any alterations, I've just cut it out and just put it straight in there. And you'll also probably note that it's a little bit different to that concept I showed you earlier. It's that I didn't want to repeat myself, so I thought I'd come up with something a little bit different. So that's the reason behind that. So I haven't really made any major changes. I've dropped that in there. I've put this nice kind of effect down the side, don't know whether I'll keep it yet, and I've dropped this major rock in here, which is the only difference. And I need to colour correct this, so I'm going to select it, and this is the left rock, so I'm going to rename this this layer. This was the original size. I left it in there because I quite liked it. I'm not going to use it though, but I'll just leave it in there anyway. And you can do that with your files, you can leave them in actual size, and you can use those for source just in case you've got to come back and redo something or change something. You've always got your source files in there. So let's go to this rock that we've got, and let's go to image and levels, and I want to lighten it a bit because it's a bit further away, so I've lightened the mid-range there. I'm also going to go down to my hue and saturation, and I'm just going to just desaturate it a little bit as well. That looks nicer. Obviously there's a bit of tidy up to do around the edge, so I can come in here with the small brush and just start to clean this up. I'm not going to go and clean up all the bits, it's just I can just do that at the end. And you want to go round just using the space bar as a hand tool. You can grab and move around the canvas. So press and hold the space bar and just move it. And what you want to do is just go round it all. Just get rid of that fringe there. Again, you could use the defringe to do this. And if you want, you can add extra foliage using the clone brush, grabbing a sample of something, putting it in there. But now it's matching a bit better, but of course this one now no longer kind of match this one, so we've got to go to our back rock, which is this one, and we've got to just change a few of the bits on here as well. It's a bit colourful, so I need to just knock that down using the saturation. Just desaturate it somewhat. And we'll be putting mist in there as well, so it's actually a bit sharper than the other one. Check it back a bit. I don't want to go too light because I want to keep the nice dark on this side. So what I can do in this case is I can duplicate this rock. I can grab my lasso tool, and this will allow me to control where it's going to be lighter or where it's going to be darker. I'm just going to select that. I'm going to inverse it, I'm going to delete it, and now I've got control over this part of the face, so I can come in and knock the levels up and just have a bit more control on it. And at the end of that, I can then just do Control E to merge this down into the rock. So we got it back again. And this front rock is actually a little bit too dark, so I'm going to come in here and just lighten him up a little bit. This back rock, sorry, I'm switching back again. I'm actually going to apply a slight Gaussian blur to this because it's too sharp. I'll probably be in 0.5, something like that. There's also another tool in Windows. You can go to History, and History allows you to go back through, do multiple undos. So I'm just going to show you the effect of this Gaussian blur on this. As you can see, it's just nibbed it back. And you might have noticed in the background there, I've got a little mountain, a little island. That was added. I'm not sure it works. I'm not sure that works. It's a slight hint of something going on back there, but I think you have to be quite careful with these, that it can take away from the that should look better now. If I come actual size, yeah, it sort of fits in a bit better now. And this rock here, the more I'm looking at it, I'm thinking it should be a bit sharper, so I'm going to go into filter and use a sharpen. I'm going to use the unsharp mask. I don't want it massively sharper, but so I think I'm going to have some features in here. I have some of this green, and I'm going to take this green down. And I've just lightened it a little bit, bringing it more towards the blue. Okay, that's good. Okay, and I'm just going to duplicate this layer and bring it down here. I just want to see how things would kind of work. Yeah, that'll look quite nice there. So I'm going to put that there. Bring up my brush size. Kill off these areas. And voila, an instant piece of foliage added to that area. So it's looking quite nice. You see, I've also put sort of like I just dragged in a kind of front of a wave, put it in there to see how it would look. I quite like it, but I decided not to use it in the end. So it's basically this picture here, something like this, and I just cut a piece out of it, feathered the top. So you know, like feathering with this, if I select the rectangular tool or the lasso tool, up here you've got a feather. So if I have it at 0 and I cut something out, let's just do it on this. If I go around here with a 0 and I cut it out, it's nice and sharp. But if I set the feather at something like 50, and now I do it, it's sharper, it's softer. So that's the feather for you, which you'll use a lot of. But yeah, I'm kind of happy with this front bit. And you see I added that in there. Still not sure about the position of that. That was another sample that I took. Yeah, so in the end I ended up putting this in the foreground here. I quite liked it. And I haven't done any changes on it much. I'll just kind of lighten it maybe. lighten it a little bit. I might use a render lighting effect on this. Adds a nice effect this end. Okay, so that's quite nice there. I played around bringing it down. Kind of looked better up here. I'm still not sure about it. I might just bring another rock in there. So at the moment I'll turn that off. Might be nice to have a bigger rock going down here. I'm going to come in and adjust this part here. So hue and saturation gain. I'll bring the saturation down. Just lighten it up a little bit. Got to check my levels. Okay, so say I'm happy with that. I could put more rocks in and things, but say I'm happy now. I want to add some kind of lighting effects to put some mist in and things like that. So before I do that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to layer these, but I want to show you how to create the layer groups that I've got. So let's do that. We got these three here which make up the front rock. All I do is select the layers, come up to the tab here, and I go new group from layers, and I put front rock, and I just hit OK, and that's it. So all my layers are contained in there, and it's nice and easy, and I've done the same with the background there. So label them and set up your groups, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll start adding the atmospheric effects. I might put another rock in here in the meantime. Okay, welcome back. I've just sort of finished putting these bits in, labeling these. So new group from layers, right side. So I've pretty much got everything organised now. And so I'm happy with the composition. I've just got to change a few things this side. So I'm going to go to my right hand side and I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to do a duplicate layer of this straight over the top. I'm going to then come down to my hue and saturation, and I'm going to lighten it and desaturate it. Click OK. Now I'm going to select my rectangular marquee and I'm going to set this at about 40, and I'll bring it straight down there, probably move it here, and just delete it. And now, because I've got the other one underneath, we've got this nice distant sort of haze, and then I'm just going to Control E to put that straight into that layer. I'm also going to check out whether it looks very good if I move the size of it down. It kind of works like that. I'm going to use my smudge tool now and I'm just going to start to pull some bits out here. This will just sink it down nicely and make it look like there's something going on. And now I'm going to do our favourite, duplicate the layer again, and this time I'm going to vertically flip it. Now here you're going to have a problem because it doesn't meet up, so I'm going to show you a little tip. Put it up to there, turn this other layer off, and go to Edit, Free Transform, and then use this, the Warp tool. And this will allow you to flex it. So I can grab this, bring these points down until it kind of works. So we're trying to get it so it kind of meets. Kind of like that. Should do it. Near enough. Okay, click apply, and then we can go back into our usual thing. Just going to drag these out. Let's put that down there. Okay. Now I'm going to turn, I've got my eraser on, start to cut through here. As usual, blow this up a bit. Don't need any of that. We don't see any of that, so don't worry. And there we go. I'll just put that rock in front to see where I'm going with this. So it's just to give the impression here. I don't want to come out too far. Yeah, so that's it. So it's like a little shadow which makes quite a big difference to this. I'm turning it on and off because sometimes I don't spot some of the bits that I need to delete. It makes it easier to do if you just turn it on and off. That's not bad. So that's quite nice there. So we've got that kind of soft look. Now we want to put in some kind of light rays. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create a new layer. like so, and this layer I'm going to fill with a white, like that. Now I'm going to use our famous feather. I'm going to select inverse, and instantly we have a light ray, which may not look like a light ray at the moment, but as soon as I drop the fill, and you can sort of scrag the end like this, and then I come up and I go to my Gaussian blur and I blur it up. Now I can sort of free transform it to create a sharper ray. But now I have a ray of light that I can put in, and I can start duplicating. It's like one of those double rays. Of course, you can keep using your free transform. It will adjust the angle as well then. And of course, some of these rays will be going behind, so I want to put it behind this front rock. So I'm going to drag it down there, and then I'm going to duplicate another ray, which I'll put in front of the rock. It looks like you get this kind of double effect. Yeah, that's quite nice there. So that's good. So let's now create some mist. So I'm just going to call these ray. And we're just going to create some mist now. So I'm going to create a new layer. And I'll show you a couple of ways to do this. The first way I'll be using a photograph, so bear with me, I'm just trying to find a good photograph that this is going to work really well with. So nice sort of fluffy, kind of fluffy clouds. This isn't bad. Here's one here. So I'm going to just snip this like this. I'm now going to go into adjustments and I'm going to go into levels. And the idea here is to try to pull this out. So I'm going to go to layer. Need to make this a layer adjustment. So there, and we can go to new layer mask, reveal all, select all, Control A, Control C to copy, Alt to go into this, paste it in there. Control V. So copy in there, paste it in. Okay, while I'm in here, I've got to now go to my levels again and begin to make this black. Click OK. Now the filter, I'm just going to use a slight Gaussian blur on it, and now I'm going to go back into this and I'm going to drag this into here. Hold on, let me apply my layer mask first. Apply layer mask and drag this into here, and there we go. Oh, he's in the wrong layer. Need to drag him into the correct one, which is this one. Just close these windows. These are just all the reference files that I used. And in here now I should have my fog. So what I do with this is I free transform, drag it in, drop this right down, drag this behind the front rock, and then of course you can duplicate it, you can move it, and you can select some of it. I put the feather on when I'm selecting like this. Now I select inverse, just delete that middle bit out. That allows you to now move this around, and I want to put it underneath. I want to put it in the right hand side underneath this layer. So he's moving there. In fact, he might look quite nice over here. And that's it. So that's how you add kind of atmospheric effects to this and get this kind of look. And the last thing I'm going to do is just create a new layer. This is going to be my tinting layer. This just combines everything together. You can use gradients. I'm just going to show you with it straight. Just plonk that in there, and then I go to soft light, and then I just bring this down, and you get this kind of nice bluey tinge. But you can, if you want to, use a gradient across it. So if I go to normal now, that's my gradient. Soft light again, so you get this darker and then it's bluer down the bottom. Of course, if you want to, you could go in here, take my opacity to about 31, and just start deleting a little bit of this blue around here. If you want to lose a bit of blue around this area. And so that kind of brings us to the end. So I hope you've enjoyed this course on matte painting. And this series continues. I actually now will be creating a 3D environment, and I'll be using this matte painting, and I'll be compositing it all in After Effects with animation as well. So we'll have things like the waterfall, going and things like that. So that'll be the next course that'll kind of follow on from this matte painting course, so stay tuned for that. I will do a newsletter on this, and by the time the newsletter goes out beginning in November, I should have that course finished, so they'll both be on there, so you can just work through this one and then take it to the next stage if you're into doing any sort of 3D work or compositing work. So this course, yeah, it's for matte painters, but it's also, as you can probably tell, gives you an insight into how to use Photoshop more effectively. So it covers a few categories really. Concept painting as well. This is a quick way of putting a concept together. This sort of standard of matte painting here, this standard, this one here should take you less than an hour and a half, maybe less. Depends on the detail, but of course you could spend weeks on this if you wanted to. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope it's helped you, and I'll see you in the next lesson, where we'll be carrying on with the next project lesson, where we'll be carrying on and taking this to the 3D stage.